Now let's talk about the writing test, which most candidates tend to struggle with. How to prepare for IELTS writing in a month?
That's not a long time to prepare for an IELTS writing test. However, there are some things that candidates can definitely do. They should definitely go and find some sample questions and sample answers. It's important to have access to good sample answers with correct band score descriptors provided. I know that Cambridge IELTS, their website online, and I believe IDP also do provide this, so I'd recommend candidates to spend at least some time focusing on good sample answers. That will help give them an idea not only of the different question types that they would receive in both part 1 and part 2 of the test, but also what an answer for their target band score would look like, which would include the mistakes, so that they would have access to that. They should also remember that within the writing test, it's not equally marked. So part 1 and part 2 of the writing test. Part 1 is normally 20 minutes, 150 words. Part 2 would be 40 minutes thereabout and 250 words. But the actual grading of the writing test is not even weighting. So part 1 is not worth as much of a grade or a final band score as the part 2 is. So if a candidate does only have 1 month, they should spend more than half of that month on focusing on part 2. It's worth more, just in terms of grading and band score. That doesn't mean they should forget part 1. There should still be work done there, but part 2 is just worth more marks in the context of the whole writing test. So I think that would be it really. Familiarise yourself with the type of questions. IELTSessentials.com or Cambridge IELTS, both those websites have access to that. Spend a bit more focus on the part 2 than the part 1 because it's more important when it comes to grading, and to continue reading. You know, reading will always help feed into the writing, so to do a double skill is useful as well. Don't forget about the reading. The more you read, it will feed into the writing for accuracy and grammar and vocabulary. So those things should help.
Even though the task 2 of the writing test is worth more marks for the writing skills, but part 1 is still an indispensable part. So what is the most common questions type in task 1?
Again, I'll split it by the general test and the academic test. The most common type of question a general test taker would receive is a letter in a sort of semi-formal style. However, with the academic test, in my experience, the most common part 1 question types are the graphs. You know, sort of you're provided with data in terms of a line graph or a bar graph or a bar chart or a table. You might get some pie charts. Less commonly, you might get a mixed question with 2 charts, a line graph and a table, for example. But generally, those types are most common in my experience, followed by a process writing, which would be to basically describe and report on a natural process, for example, a life cycle of an animal, or a man-made process. For example, how is this cup made in a factory? In my experience, one of the less common task 1s in the writing test is a map. Again, there are different types of map questions, and they're not as common as the graphs or the tables. I would, however, recommend that candidates have a working knowledge and are familiar with all of those different types of questions that they could receive in a part 1.